let me first off start off by introducing the crew again. We have Mr. Alan Harris from Austin City, Texas, and Mr. Donald Pope from Columbus, Ohio. Mr. Michael Lewis, hiding down there in Houston, Texas. And Chandra out there with the fruit and nuts out in the West Coast.
Hiding behind the camera. I'm a sticky girl right now.
Okay. And back to Brooklyn with the grain elevator and the gas station. Okay, so back to Alan.
Okay, thank you, Don. We left off in chapter 6 and in verse 2. How shall we that are dead to this old sin nature, how can we live any longer therein? It's like going back to Egypt, like the children of Israel. They've been delivered out of bondage, and it's like going back to Egypt. I think about that because they were in bondage. Well, today, whether mankind realizes it or not, because life itself has been interrupted and disrupted. It's been interrupted by death, and it's been disrupted by all kinds of evil. It's old sin nature that's been in development for 6,000 years, and it's a bondage. It's a prison because there's death and there's there's always seems like there's always somebody that wants to lie and hurt people and steal and just stuff like that. That just it ruins that perfect life that we should be having. That was really God's designed, a perfect life, and it's in ruins right now, and mankind does not realize that. Anyway, how did I get off on that? Oh, yeah. How shall we live in it? Know you not. Common phrase here, by the way. Know you not. Don't you know? This is something we're supposed to know then. Know you not that so many of us, as we're dipped into Jesus Christ, you remember you we were dipped into Jesus Christ and came out Jesus-y. Oh, John says that a lot better than I do. We were dipped in Jesus and came out Jesus-y. That's what that means. We were we were submerged into Jesus Christ. Know you not that so many, as we're dipped into Jesus Christ, we're dipped into his death? And this is also related to a verse where he died in our place. We are identified with Jesus Christ. It's in Galatians, and I hope I quote it correctly. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith in the Son of God, who gave himself for me, and I guess I'm misquoting that, but that's in Galatians. We are identified with Christ. He died in our place. We had this, and I say had very accurately, past tense. We had this death penalty hanging over our heads. And every living person today has this. I can't say every living person, because you and I have already been judged righteous with this death penalty. Anyway, he died in our place, which renders us righteous from this death penalty. We were baptized into his death. Therefore, we are buried with him by baptism unto death, that like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. That word also is in the wrong place. And it is a new life So we should walk. How do we do that? Okay, well, Jesus Christ was raised from the dead to no longer go back to the grave. He was raised again, never to return. He's alive, and he will never die again. Okay, if you can think that in your brain, that Jesus Christ has been made alive, then you and I have been made alive because we're identified with him. When he died, we died. When he arose, we also arose. So that's something we put it on in here in our brain daily, thinking about that. We've been made alive. It's a new life. It's a new life. The old life is all screwed up. The new life, we reign in life. It's a life of righteousness. It's an everlasting life. It will never wear out. You know, when I was very young, I went to the Baptist church, and one of the questions that they would pose to people, you know what's going to happen to you when you die? And that seemed to be a prevalent method of witnessing. Well, that's just not true. That just the question itself is inaccurate, because this new life began when we were born again of God's Spirit, and it will never wear out. It will never wear out. We're born into the family of God, never to return back to the dead stuff. We've been delivered from that stuff. It's an everlasting life. Anyway, move on. It's a new life, so we should walk in it. Of course, that word walk is figurative. It's our manner of life. When we walk, it's our manner of life. We walk in a new life. It's a newness of life. For if we've been planted, like a seed being planted in the ground, and that word planted is very accurate, for if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall, that word also is in the wrong place again. I hope sometime, Michael, you could teach on that, because I've wanted to know about that. That word also is out of place. We shall be in the likeness of his resurrection also. I think that's the way it's supposed to be said. For if we've been planted together in the likeness of his death, like a seed being planted in the ground, we shall be in the likeness of his resurrection also, knowing this, and this is another time where something we're to know, that our old man, or former man, this is referring to that old sin nature, the former man, the former life. That's why I didn't say life. It's because it's really a dead life. It's the old nature. Knowing this, that our old man, the former man, is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve that sin nature. That sin nature. For he that is dead is freed from sin. Okay, that old nature has been crucified, right? It's been buried. Because when Jesus died, he died in our place. So that old nature, that old sin nature has been crucified, and it's been buried. And this new life, just like as Christ has been raised from the dead, that new life that this is talking about, the context here, this new life, we reckon ourselves, okay, the next verse, likewise reckon ye also yourselves to be dead indeed. I'm stumbling on my words. Let me reread that. Likewise reckon ye also yourselves to be dead indeed unto that sin nature, but alive unto God through Jesus Christ our Lord. And that is how, this is learning how to serve. I read this earlier. For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit. This is how. These are the steps on how. And this is not something that you just do once and then go on about your business. This is something to be put into practice. This is a doctrine to be put into practice. Likewise, reckon ye also yourselves to be dead indeed unto sin, but alive unto God through Jesus Christ our Lord. By the way, that word reckon, I covered this in a previous teaching, is the same word as the word impute and count, so forth in chapter 4, talking about Abraham, that God reckoned righteousness unto it. You can think of this, account, like you have a bank account. What is that thing called? A register. And you keep your balance. I wrote this check, and your balance is. You keep a record of it. That's like this word reckon. It's to keep an account. Likewise, keep an account that you account yourselves. You also yourselves to be dead and indeed unto sin. So we reckon that. We account that to be dead indeed unto this sin nature, but alive unto God through Jesus Christ our Lord, because it's a new life. Now then, let not this old sin nature, the old man, the old sin nature, therefore reign, take control of, have an authority on in your mortal body, that you should obey it in the lusts thereof. Neither yield ye your members as weapons, is the word instruments. Weapons. Trying to think of that verse. That's in 2 Corinthians 10. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. That's that same word, weapons. Of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourself unto God as those that are alive from the dead. Have you ever thought about that? We have been made alive from the dead. It's a new life. This old or former life has been crucified and buried, because that we are identified with Jesus Christ. He crucified and buried that old life that has imprisoned us with both evil, sin, the old nature, and death. I forgot where I left. And your members as those alive from the dead, and your members as instruments or weapons of righteousness unto God. Isn't that fabulous? Shakespeare couldn't have ever come up with something like that. Beautiful how God just presents this to us. For sin shall not have dominion over you. Why? Because Jesus has been raised from the dead, and we reckon ourselves alive with this new life. For you're not under the law, but under grace. And I don't want to go too much further on this one, because that I know we're getting kind of late, and I'll work on this one on the next teaching a few weeks away, because there's more to this than I want to spend. What then shall we sin? And by the way, this is different than that first question. Shall we continue in sin? Or what then shall we sin? There is a difference. This is actually talking about committing a sin, right? Shall we commit a sin? See, there is one, the sin nature, being compelled or imprisoned by this sin nature, and this one is committing a sin. All right? Shall we commit sins because we're not under the law but under grace? See, that's kind of like a backward statement there. So there's more to this than I really want to do this evening, because I know it's getting kind of late. So I'm going to stop there, and turn it back over to Don.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Well, right now we're going to say goodbye. So for right now, good night. We'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Okay.